students, welcome back to our YouTube channel. We were discussing in our last class about the asexual mode of reproduction. Now we are moving on to the sexual mode of reproduction. It is no doubt a biological process. This involves the formation of both male and female gametes. These gametes fuse to form the zygote, which later develops to form a new individual organism. Of course, it is an elaborate, complex, and a very slow process, but without which the continuity of life cannot exist. When you talk about the sexual reproduction, we come across the life cycle of an organism. In the life cycle of an organism, when we talk about it, the sexual process or the sexual reproduction involves the formation of male and female gametes. In the left part of the slide, you can see the male gametes, the pollens. In the right part, you can see the female gamete as egg in an embryo sac. How the development and the formation will take place, we will discuss in our later classes. The second step is the fusion of gametes. Here, the gametes have to fuse. Gamete means the male and the female should get fused, and after that, the double fertilization will happen, and that leads to the formation of zygote and a primary endosperm nucleus. The third one is the embryogenesis. This is nothing but the formation of an embryo from the initial fertilized stage to form the embryo. That complete the different stages that you can come across is representing the embryogenesis. Now, there are three major phases in life of an organism that we need to remember. That means any organism will be exhibiting three different phases. That is juvenile phase. It is also named as the initial phase or a vegetative stage. In this you can see the seed when it gets in a right atmosphere and what condition, it will sprout. After that, till it produces the flowers or till the flowering happen, that becomes a vegetative phase that we are going to discuss. Next is the reproductive phase. When an organism attains this maturity, it is understood that the organism is capable of reproducing its own kind. The third one is the senescence phase. In this stage, the plant usually decreases all kinds of the metabolism that is found in the organism. That leads to the death. Once the metabolism is decreased, then that leads to the death. That is the final stage. That is the senescence stage. You must remember, the first one is the juvenile phase, the second one is the reproductive stage, and the third one is the senescence stage or the phase. Now, when you talk about the animals or any biennial plants, all these are going to exhibit these three stages what I mentioned. One is a vegetative phase, second one is reproductive phase, the third one is the senescence phase. All these animals and biennial plants they are going to exhibit these three phases. There are some exceptions, no doubt in it. So this slide shows an exceptional case. This is Strobelianthus kunthiana. It is also named as Neelakuranji. On the way to Kerala and Tamil Nadu, you can see these blue color flowers once in 12 years. That shows all these three stages what we discussed, juvenile stage, reproductive stage and the senescence stage, will be taking some time, like 3 months and 4 months and like later on like this. But here is an exception, that this is particular plant which bears the flower only after 12 years. After that, it's a gone case. Next one is another exception. This is particularly Neelakuranji will be blooming only 12 years after once in 12 years, and that too during September and October. Another example to be quoted here is the bamboo plant. Flowering happens once in lifetime. Remember this point. Bamboo is the plant wherein the flowering happens once in lifetime. And after 50 years to 150 years, that ranges. Once in a lifetime, it will flower. And after that, it's gone. Now, moving on to the juvenile stage in animals, wherein the morphological and the physiological changes that will lead to an active reproductory behavior shown by some of the animals. Here, juvenile stage, you can see in the left part of the slide, the juvenile stage. It appears like this, and later onwards, when it becomes a reproductive stage or the phase where the kangaroo is showing its baby in the pouch, that shows there is a change or a transformation happening in these cases. Moving on to the concept of mammals. What happens in case of mammals? Based on the reproductory system in the mammals, it is undergoing two kinds of cycle. One is estrous cycle, the other one is menstrual cycle. This estrous cycle is a seasonal one. These are shown in non-primates, cow, sheep, deer, rat, tiger, dogs, and so on. You need to remember these examples. It may be asked in any way. So, estrous cycle shown by these animals. And moving on to the menstrual cycle, which is a continuous cycle. Exception is primates, including human beings. It is named after the process of breeding. That is, it is a continuous breeding process happening in these um, animals. That is primates example. You can learn the menstrual cycle in our next classes. Now moving on to the major events that takes place in the sexual reproduction are mainly pre-fertilization event, fertilization event, and post-fertilization event. Pre-fertilization. We know that after the fusion of the gamete, that fertilization happens, the transferring of the male into female. This event includes two important processes. One is formation of the gamete and the gamete transfer. So before the fertilization happens, these two things are very essential to be learned. One is the formation of the gamete and the second one is the transfer of the gamete. And then is the fertilization event, exact fertilization event. In some cases, it is external fertilization shown, and in some other, it is the internal fertilization process is seen. And the last stage or the event in the sexual reproduction is the post-fertilization event. After fertilization, it is post-fertilization event is shown. Now, moving on to the gametogenesis, the process of formation of a gamete, we need to remember one thing, that is the gametogenesis that happens in some of the organisms. Taking an example of cladophora, the algae, what happens in this particular organism is the gametes formed will resemble with each other. Gametes are male and female, of course, but they resemble with each other both in size and structure. Morphological appearance will remain the same. And this event of the gametogenesis process, where we come across in some algae like fucus, you can see one is bigger, the other gamete is a smaller one. That is, one is larger in size, the other one is very minute structure. In human beings, like Homo sapiens, what we find is one is fixed, that is egg, the other one is the sperm. In this gamete, these gametes are motile in nature. They move from one place to another. That means the movement of the sperm is exhibited for the process of fertilization. That shows the heterogametes. It is the size and the structure is different. One is homogamete, wherein both the gametes are resembling with each other and the size will remain the same. Whereas in the heterogamete condition, Best example quoted here is the fucus and also Homo sapiens. In these two cases, as example, I could tell you, wherein the female will be larger in size and the male is very tiny, and they are motile in nature. So now let me sum up what we have learned in our class. First one is we learned the reproduction process, especially the sexual reproduction process, involves the formation of the gamete, both male and female, later the fusion of these gametes leading to the formation of a zygote. And then we learnt the process called embryogenesis, and later the phases of life of an organism. Different stages or the phases in the life of an organism we learned, and the three phases like juvenile phase, reproductive phase, and the senescence phase. We learned the juvenile phase in some examples. We gave the reproductive phase also, and also some examples for senescence. That is the last stage of the life of a organism, especially taking or considering the plants as an example. We learned the juvenile stage and the reproductive stage and the senescence. It was also having another name. Juvenile phase is vegetative phase, reproductive phase, and senescence. In annuals and biennial plants, they also exhibit three phases, as we learned: the juvenile phase, that is also named as the vegetative phase, reproductive stage, and the senescence phase. Among the perennial plants, clear differentiation of these three phases are not observable. And that's the reason we have given the example in Kuntiana and also the bamboo. We learnt about it. And then among mammals, there are two cycles involved. One is estrous cycle and the menstrual cycle. And then later on was the formation of gametes. We learnt that is called the process gametogenesis. Under the gametogenesis, there are two types of gametes formed usually. One is homogamete, other one is the heterogamete. Homogamete, in the case of homogamete, both the gametes appear the same. They look alike, their morphological structure appears the same. In the case of heterogametes, the male and the female gametes have got a large differentiation. That's what we learned in this class. I hope you have understood the whole concepts in this class. Thank you, one and all.